I always joke that some of my best friends are the ones I trust to hit me hardest in the face, because I know they're doing it with good intent.
Hello there, and welcome to Thank the Maker, a podcast about heroes, princesses, scoundrels, hokey religions, ancient weapons, and all things Star Wars. I'm Adam Russell.
And I am Mike Forrester. Adam, we have quite a busy week here for a number of reasons. One, our dear friend Nick wasn't able to be here tonight because they also announced that Bayside is going on tour with Taking Back Sunday, which is quite fun. And they're going to what they call our B markets, which happens to be my hometown of Royal Oak, Michigan, which he was like, who's ever heard of Royal Oak? I was like, indeed I have. And in addition to that, you also have an album coming out this weekend.
This Friday, and we have our album release show to celebrate that Saturday in St. Louis. So it's busy times. It's busy times for our real jobs.
What is the excitement building for this album? Because the first two singles I have burned out on my digital music player. And I'm excited for. Are we getting another single this week? Are we teasing something? Or are we just gonna go full bore, wait until Valentine's Day and then crush your heart with a bunch of raw emotions?
The latter. Also,
Okay.
don't act like you haven't had the whole album for months and months.
I don't want the people.
Okay?
The people don't need to know that. Okay, we got to play the game. We got to be a part of it. I remember listening to it and thinking this is gonna crush. And I want to experience it like everybody else.
Very good. Yeah, it's going to be fun, but like all hometown shows, it's a ton of stress, and then you add the fact that it's the album release show, and I'm about to lose my mind.
Sure.
So it's nice to be taking a moment here on this Tuesday evening to talk about lightsabers.
Yeah, let's take a break and talk about lightsabers.
Something a little light.
Nice. Good one.
Nailed it.
Good job. Good job. We have we're talking about the Saber documentary today, and joining us we have Matt Wyatt, the director, and we also have Alec Martinez, who is one of the competitors and featured as a subject in the documentary. Gentlemen, how are we tonight?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having us on.
I'm doing pretty good. It's been a fun day, so got to hit some friends with swords already.
That's awesome.
Nice.
That's awesome. Well, give us the, you had reached out to us because you were like, hey, we've got this really great documentary. And the more that we, I think from an outsider's perspective, the Star Wars community is no stranger to, multiple variations of different kinds of lightsabers. We have all different kinds of the ways that lightsabers are built and created. There is an entire fandom. Jason, our producer, is a lightsaber builder, and I've learned a ton from him. But there's also the side that actually uses lightsabers as their main intention of how we fell in love with them, which is quite literally a sparring tool, a deadly tool, the intention of it actually being a saber. And so tell us a little bit about how this documentary started, Matt, because it's a pretty cool story that's different than what you think. And I like that because we are a place, I think all Star Wars fans are found family. And in that regard, you used saber technique, battling this competition as a way to highlight that. So tell us a little bit about the documentary.
Yeah, I first found TSL, the Saber Legion, on TikTok. I was scrolling through TikTok and I came across Alec. He was talking about swords, talking about lightsabers, talking about all these different things. And he was talking about actual real dueling with full pads and stuff with lightsabers. And I was like, what is this? So I slid into his DMs and was like, hey, what is this? Who are you? Where are you? And then I've come to find out he lived just an hour away from me. And he invited me to a meetup in Orlando. I live in Lakeland, Florida, which is in between Tampa and Orlando. And I was like, so we went to this meet in Orlando and I saw all these amazing people competing. And more than just competing, I could see they were competing against each other, but I could see there was more there. There was sort of a family atmosphere. And it was such a different world when you think of like competitive sports and especially combat sports. You don't really think, oh, they're going to be friends afterwards, because they're beating each other up. But I got to see them just interact together. And I was just like, this is amazing. I think there's a story here. And I'm a filmmaker. So I was like, I think there might be a story. So I got to know Alec more. And then at the same event, I got to know Kat, who's also featured in the documentary, and got to know them and get to know them, had a few Zoom calls with them just to see what their stories were. And then I was like, let's try to make a documentary out of this and see what happens. So I followed them around for around 3 years and just filmed different things, and eventually made a 90-minute documentary about it. And that's how the story unfolded.
That is
Amazing.
awesome.
Alec, I got the vibe from like right off the top, aside from you talking about getting hit in the face by your friends, the entire vibe really is community, found family, and finding your people and finding other nerds who are as deeply nerdy as we are, as these folks are, as you are in this particular narrow niche. Was that something that you sort of sought out, or something that just inherently came out of just trying to gather people with similar interests within this fandom?
So I cannot like claim I had anything to do with the founding of the organization. I stumbled across it on accident at a Comic-Con,
Nice.
which is kind of the way I made a lot of my friends now that I think about it. But they were doing a demo and I'm like, man, that looks like a cool thing I want to do. And lo and behold, it is a really fun thing to do. Who'd have thunk? You whacking your friends with lightsabers, the same thing we did when we were kids. It's still fun as an adult.
Awesome. I've thought so much for so long about the idea of all the different ways to make these fictional universes that we love more livable, whether it's something like Galaxy's Edge or LARPing, different things, like all these nerdy things where we try to make it real. And I've thought about many times in my life that there can and should be. I know there actually are in some states registered, like Star Wars related, whether it's the Church of the Jedi or whatever, like an actual nonprofit, a registered church where you would go to a place and not worship per se, but do activities that one would do in a place, and that would include training in lightsaber combat or some kind of force adjacent meditation kind of thing, right? Sorry to just jump right into something kind of off the wall, but I imagine there's probably conversations about similar kind of crap like this within this community, right?
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
That's that's like obviously like you don't get into this unless you are head over heels in love with this universe. And I think that the more time we can spend with it, like we've had full days where we just pretended to be Jedi walking around Galaxy's Edge because it was fun to be immersed.
absolutely.
So, Alec, the question I want to ask you is even when we jumped on, Matt had asked, you were training someone, or you were working on something, and you said that you were working on a old 16th century rapier. And I don't know if that's correct, but for people who aren't watching at home, or aren't watching on YouTube, you have this beautiful longsword behind you, and I get the sense that the lightsaber is one part of this sword combat. But what is your background as an actual, because I get the sense from the trailer that you're like, yeah, I take myself seriously as a swordsman, but I'm looking at you going, this guy actually is pretty serious about swords. So give people the background of what your actual background is in terms of being a dueler, and I'm sorry, we're going to butcher the terms, but I think there's something really interesting about the fact that this is
Fair.
not only the coordination, but also, what is your background as a swordsman?
No, honestly, fair because I make jokes all the time because I mean, how seriously can you take a swordsman in the modern day? But so I study HEMA, which is historical European martial arts, and I'm an instructor in that, and I've been competing in that for a number of years alongside what we do with TSL. And prior to that, I did Eskrima and Muay Thai and MMA. At a certain point, my day job as a physical therapist, I walked into clinic with a black eye, and my boss looked at me and said, "You want to keep doing that?" And I'm like, "No, I should find a safer sport."
Mhm.
And I kind of stumbled further into weapons arts where we wear better protective gear than we do in MMA, and it just cascaded into hyperfixation.
And Alec, what's the highest rank you've gotten in the Saber Legion?
Oh, phew. I've definitely made top 3 on the ELO leaderboards. In the tag team group, we did win the belt this year, and then at the tournament level, I think if I say anything, that's a spoiler for the movie.
That makes sense. So Matt, when I ask the question too, and maybe Alec, you're the better person to answer this, and I'm curious about this because I think when people see when they see Saber dueling, right, there is a difference between that you guys are actually you're sparring. This is
Mhm.
real. This is actual dueling, and the protective stuff is not just for show. It's not for costume. It's actually to protect you. Versus we see a lot of other people who do choreographed lightsaber dueling, which is more designed of either for theatrical purposes or it's for film or stunts or anything like that. So what are the differences between the two of those in regards of we have the Saber League, which is actually a combat league, versus I'm sure there's a different competitive league for more choreography and that kind of performance art of using the sabers as kind of a almost a stage prop. What was the difference between those for most people who are kind
Yeah,
of being like, I feel like I've seen something, but there is a difference.
yeah. I'll jump in first, and then Alec can go in and talk too. There's a thing called the Saber Guild, which is they do choreography. They're sort of like the 501st, but they are doing actual fight choreography. So they're counting like, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, spin, do these things. So it's more of like a dance with sabers, and they're working on different types of sort. They're basing it off of the movies, and they're also taking it and making their own and modifying it and doing different things like that.
Sure.
With the Saber Legion TSL, which is what the documentary is about, it is a full. They call it the MMA of sword fighting. You're in a square. You're in full armor, and you are it's a first person to about 10 points. And there's judges that are seeing who hits first, and it's really just trying to get the most points in the allotted time. And there are certain parts of the body you can't hit for safety reasons, but it's pretty much full contact, full force is hard as you can go. And Alec, do you have anything else you want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, the spirit of what we do in each realm is a little different, obviously. I think the best way I ever heard fight choreography for movies and stage combat described is this is visual storytelling. And the first purpose of visual storytelling is not necessarily to look real, but to capture the moment well with movement. Versus in combat, your job is to most efficiently as possible neutralize the other person. They
Simple
don't
enough.
look very similar, and you can ask almost any martial artist who's watched kung fu movies, things like that. But it's still just, it's. I don't think either one's wrong. I do. We do get people in the combat sports world who are like, "Oh, I hate watching choreography." I'm like, no, it's awesome. It's just a different thing.
We have gotten used to this idea of we talk about this all the time on the podcast where like our brains fill in what we remember about Star Wars sometimes. And so for all the funny parts about going, oh, like there was never a duel as epic as this one time, but like if you watch Darth Vader fly down the steps in Empire Strikes Back, it's incredibly corny from this standpoint now because we've seen Darth Vader and all these Jedi do these amazing things. But what's really cool about Star Wars in that sense is that Bob Anderson was the original fight choreographer for Star Wars, and he was a Olympic fencer, I think, for Team Britain, and he worked for Hollywood doing a lot of fencing and all that. And I apologize if I'm telling the audience what Alec you probably like. I'm of course we know Bob. He's the legend in that world. But the idea that they were not these howitzers, they were not these huge big sweeping, they were not using broadswords in the paint. It was very the Obi-Wan Vader fight in the original Death Star in A New Hope was very tactical, and it was very like sharp points. It was very much more fencing than it was straight up like, just trying to, you think of two knights with broadswords just trying to absolutely hack each other. And that was all from Bob Anderson. So I'm curious your perspective as someone who knows how dueling works and how fencing and different martial arts work. What was your reaction to seeing how lightsaber dueling fights have evolved over the years of Star Wars, starting with A New Hope?
So obviously there's a lot of background to what Bob all put into it, and him and George worked really, really hard to capture different things and different vibes. I think everybody really harkens back to in that first duel with Obi-Wan and Vader, it looks very similar to Kendo. And we're all very aware of like George's influence from Kurosawa, and I'm 100% certain that was on purpose. And then as we get further into the movies, I remember Mark Hamill and some of the background will talk about how him and Bob talked about how they wanted it to look more like a heavy longsword and moving them through. And it's really fun to watch all of these different stages of them experimenting with how do we better tell this story. And Bob does an amazing job throughout his entire history of choreographing because he's been involved in almost every fight scene we all love throughout Hollywood of blending real technique with, hey, but can I make it look extra fun? And I think that he has almost all of my favorites. I think he was still the choreographer on Princess Bride, which was my number one duel of all time.
Sick.
But I cannot say for certain if I'm right on that now.
What's funny is I think what it comes down to with that duel in A New Hope, everybody dogs on it, especially now in the days, in the CG era where, starting with really with Yoda in Attack of the Clones, the backflipping just like insane, highly choreographed, highly complex kind of lightsaber battles. And then of course Revenge of the Sith and on. Everybody dogs on that A New Hope duel. But I think it wasn't the style, the approach. I think Alec Guinness probably just wasn't a very athletic dude. So it's not the technique itself on paper. It's more like his
Capabilities at this.
his inability to sell it physically.
And Vader couldn't see out of his mask.
Right. Yeah.
So there's that too, which does add to the whole like you're
Yeah,
trusting
and
your hands.
the fact that at the time they were using rotoscope on the lightsaber, it couldn't move as much.
Yeah. There's so many factors. But there's one particular shot of Alec Guinness where he kind of does this little swirly thing, and it looks like a little kid who's never tried to hold a sword before until this moment. I just don't think the dude got down with sports, is what I'm getting at.
It's true.
I think that's right.
It absolutely does. I think in one of the old cuts, because like if you have like one of the ones before the remaster, you can actually see the lightsaber come out of the illumination and it just turns off in that moment too.
Yeah.
Alec, you were right, by the way. Princess Bride is Bob Anderson. So good brain on that. Very good. But Matt, I want to get into this in this documentary because the part about Star Wars that I think that we have really come to appreciate as we've been doing this podcast now for 6 years. And the part that continues to bring us back would be that if it was just talking about Star Wars, I don't know if we would have lasted this long in regards of just being fans. It would have just probably, turned into a text message chain between people who were really into it. But our found family, in terms of our side businesses, in terms of the way that we approach appreciating cinema, all of these things has really found, so the people that I talk to the most are Star Wars people at this point in my adult life. And I think in the documentary that really shines through that finding people at this point as adults and finding things that we love enough to want to get into them. It's hard getting into new hobbies oftentimes as an adult because you don't know if you have a community to support you in that. You don't want to put yourself out there anytime. Podcasting, like I still tell people that, I have a podcast and people look at me like, you what? I'm like, just don't worry about it. I don't care. I don't need you to watch it because
of course you do.
Of course you do. You're a white dude with a podcast. But my biggest thing is like the fact that we have really embraced who we are at this point. And really what I see in Saber is a lot of people who have embrace this part of themselves. So speak a little bit to that because I think that's going to be the part that when people watch the documentary, they're really going to be like, I'm in. I get it.
Yeah, and that was like when I went to that first meetup, I was looking as a fan, like, is this something I'd want to do? And then I saw the community that was there and I was like, this looks like these people could be my friends. It was just one of those things where it's like, this is a really cool community. And what's really amazing about the Saber Legion is it's so diverse. You have people from all different backgrounds, all different lifestyles, and they really accept everyone and anyone for who they are. And it's just a truly amazing, genuine community that is what I really wanted to capture in the film was that community. And Kat has an amazing story. She was going through a really rough time in the document and in her life, and and we really were able to capture her story about how the Saber Legion actually saved her. And it's just a really cool story. And that was something that once we started to get to know Alec and Kat, I was like, okay, there's a real story here. It's not just a documentary about people that duel on the weekends. There's more to it. It's really a found family, and it's really an amazing community. Like us, when we were making the film, it was pretty remarkable. It was fun. It was interesting because they'd be like, hey, you want to come out to dinner with us? And don't worry, like it wasn't just like, hey, we want to film this. It was more like, hey, let's go hang out and do stuff, not part of the film type of thing. So it was a really cool thing. And since then, I've actually started to join TSL and duel myself. So I've gone to a few meets and suited up and swapped blades, and have joined the community myself also.
Awesome. It is really the best thing about this era, this time in the world, where you can find people around the world in such a niche way. I mean, like we all love and hate the internet and everything it does to us, right? But I wouldn't know Mike for real. I wouldn't know Jason for real without the internet. You know,
Yeah,
Podcasting, of course, like there's this greater reach, and we kind of came to each other in that way. But the community that we've kind of cultivated with our podcast and the groups of people that we found to create these other little like subsets of the fandom are so special. And seeing stuff like this, it gives me hope, that there are people that are out there that are still finding each other in ways that they didn't know that they could before, and that there's more to do out there than just sit at home and doom scroll on a little tiny screen.
for sure.
I think the part of trying to find a community that supports you in any way, because I think that we have gotten to this point where there's, and especially like in the Saber community, in terms of the because I think your classification is LED versus like display, right? Like these are dueling sabers that
Hmm.
probably don't have some of the features that we have come to expect and found in the Star Wars community. With these are all the sound effects, these are film accurate buttons, and all this kind of stuff. Like that's
Yeah,
not really what TSL is. And so in that sense, there are these different paths that people can take. But I have to imagine the same way that I use Star Wars as a way for me to get my fundraising in. Like I'm good at stewarding community to raise money for causes through creative projects. But I can also imagine, based on what I'm seeing, is like, and Alec, please speak to this, as someone who's a physical fitness professional. I have to imagine that there is a massive amount of people who would go, I'm aware of, I'm learning things about my body, I'm learning things about my concentration, I'm learning things about like how my body works in space, that like as an adult, as we change, we get older, like staying fit and staying focused and concentrated is a very hard thing to do. So I'm interested in like the physical aspect of saber training, saber fighting, saber dueling, because like if for anyone who doesn't know anything about fencing, it's incredibly focused. It's incredible. Like you were there, and to your point, you said like the best duel is always like to dispatch your enemy, but like the if you've ever dueled with a friend with your lightsabers, you're like, whoa, I could actually swing this thing pretty hard, but I also realize I'm terrible at defending myself, right? So I'm interested in hearing your side of like being a trainer, and also like what people experience when they do this for the first time, because it's pretty cool from my perspective.
Yeah, I love that question. You hit like my nerd niche right on the button. So thank you. My area of physical therapy, I've done a whole lot with neuroscience. So I am heavily biased towards martial arts because, as you said, your ability to sense where you are in space, your proprioception, is something that is a trained skill, and it's a perishable skill. So something we talk about a whole lot with populations as we go from very active when we are younger to kind of losing touch with things that make us want to stay active is cool. If you don't use it, you will lose it. That is true with strength, it's true with your heart condition, but it's also true with your motor skills. So I am biased towards martial arts because it's what I do and it's what I love. But there's also some phenomenal research on traditional martial arts like Tai Chi as well that show actually, yeah, this is a remarkably good way to get your body in a good place in the world. Although I was also given a piece of advice from a mentor of mine way back in the day, which was the best exercise for you is the one that you want to do. Because if you hate cycling, even though it's good for your knees, you're not going to keep cycling eventually. But if what gets you up and out on a Saturday is seeing your buddies lighten up your glow sticks and having at it, you will be in better shape because you're going to keep doing it. It's fun.
And I can attest it is a workout. Like the first
Yeah.
time I suited up, I mean, you're wearing pads, HEMA jacket, you're sweating, and it's like I don't know how long the rounds are, but it seems like it's forever, but it's not that long. It's like 2 minutes or something. But you're just like, I am exhausted afterwards. So it is an intense sport for sure. And it does give you a workout. I can testify to that.
Well, now that we're kind of getting into some more of the details, let's talk about rules, scoring, fighting styles. I have a bunch of questions. How much of this is sort of
Boy.
ported over from kendo, fencing, different things like that, and how much of it was created specifically for this style in terms of like rules and also in terms of fighting style? Are you actually trying to adapt in universe fighting styles and things like that as well? And I know that was like a 3 or 4 part question, but I'll like kind of speak to it in whatever capacity you want to.
I can take this one, Matt, if it's a little bit easier because I've been on the rules committee. Um, so we initially based our rule set on what HEMA, Kendo, and fencing all do together. And because every single one of them has looked at bladed weapons differently, and that's kind of the only perspective we have on what lightsaber might be like. Because I don't want to be hit by a sharp thing, I don't want to be hit by a searing hot thing. I'm probably going to defend myself somewhat similar. They're both long, and I want to avoid that thing. Um, we based ours on a first touch rule set. And the justification I've always used is the first time Dooku and Obi-Wan fight each other, when Obi-Wan gets nicked in the leg and falls over, because I wouldn't want to be hit by that either. That sounds
Mhm.
awful. So that's kind of how we base it is if one touch seems to be enough to take down one of my favorite Jedi masters, it's probably going to be effective enough. So that's where we go to. And so we halt it at the first touch and then play as if it's a new duel for the next point. Because realistically, if you're rolling around on the ground and screaming in pain, it's probably not going to be a very epic fight. So we always just kind of play the next point and the next point. We play it for a total about 2.5 minutes with stops for the judges. So it usually ends up taking about 5 or 6. And it's to whoever gets 10 points first. And then we do all our judging visually because there's not a great electronic scoring system available to us at this point. And so anything that looks like a double or simultaneous, the first 3 times you just don't score, but at a certain point, it shows you're not defending yourself. So both fighters start to lose a point at that stage.
Interesting.
Because it's a quick and dirty rundown.
And they fight in a square. It's a square that they're fighting in. And there's 4 line judges, and then there's a referee in the middle, and then there's also a scoring table. And so they just it's all visual, and they see who had the first hit, and it's the first one to a set point, and that's who wins the match.
Yeah, I was really curious about how it was scored visually because I was assuming there wasn't sort of like an electronic based contact identifier like you have in fencing. Like with the, you just maybe it's the cost or the engineering of it with an LED lightsaber. I imagine there are a lot of challenges there. Has anyone been trying to work on that? Is there like a goal to eventually get to the point where you can score electronically like that?
There was a company working on a system, and as you guessed, so far it's proven very cost prohibitive for them to produce the product. So it's a dream, and I think it's something that we'd all love to see because when we're not fighting, we are usually judging, and we have to have 4 external judges in the ring, one person in the middle to call for safety. That's a lot of volunteers to keep things going, and anytime you're volunteering is time that you don't get to spend booping your friends with sticks. So we'd love to see obviously higher tech for it. It just hasn't quite come to fruition in a way that stays accessible because as you guys have mentioned, community is our forefront and I don't ever want to see a barrier to entry where people can't join because the gear's too much.
Right. Yeah. So going back to in universe, out of universe styles, and whether it's with the fighting or the weapons themselves, like Matt, I'm looking behind you, and you have a saber there that has an atypically long hilt for an
Yeah.
in universe saber that's based on some like an earthly design, right? And the guard and everything, right?
Yeah.
Are a lot of the sabers like that? Are they built in a way where it's a non-removable blade and it's reinforced in a different way? Is
Um,
that more typical?
the blade, there's a length they have to be. I'm sure Alec can give the exact length, but there's rules on how long they can be, how long the base can be. But they're all baselit, so that means the lights in the bottom and shines up so that there aren't any electronics in the actual blade itself, because that's just more stuff that can break. Alec, what are the actual measurements that they need to be specifically?
So the hilts can be up to 16 inches. Your blade can be up to 39 inches long. As Adam was alluding to earlier, we want to try and get as much play within the various styles, both of earthly martial arts, but also the stuff we see in the movies as possible. So there are hilts that are curved like dooku's, and we see some of the within our exotics division. We get some of the cross guards like Kylo has, and the two-sword style like you see with Ahsoka and Anakin. Well, Anakin only in movie 2, but semantics.
Mhm.
So the idea is that we want to have that variety in there, and what we've effectively seen is that there doesn't seem to be a superior to it. It is very much like anything else. The art is not the art, and so we get to see a lot of people finding ways to find a reasonable analog. Like obviously, we don't have the Force, so we probably aren't using Vapod, but we do have a lot of people who focus on single hand dueling, which is obviously where most people go, okay, that looks like Makashi. Or we have a fair amount of people who have more of a kendo background, which most people associate with Form 1. And so Polish Saber ends up looking quite a bit like Sorisu. There is a whole lot of correlation. And I have to imagine that the authors who were thinking of the forms were also thinking of, well, what have I seen in real world martial arts that I can put on the page, but enhanced with the Force, which is where we fall off because I don't have that.
Yeah, and something cool that TSL does is they have the standard division, which is just the normal single blade, and then they have the exotics, which is you can have people like Darth Maul with a double-sided saber. You can have people with two sabers, cross guards, all types of craziness. They have a bunch of rules to say what exactly they can be, but the exotics division is pretty interesting because it's all types of different types of LED weapons you can think of, which are pretty interesting for sure.
So do you have folks coming in with stuff that is? I mean, I noticed in the documentary footage, I think I for sure saw a Spider-Man themed
Yeah.
set of armor or gear. I thought I saw
You saw Deadpool.
Deadpool, yeah,
Deadpool,
with a
yeah.
shield, which was kind of
Yes.
sick. Yeah.
Yeah, something else on a face, but yeah. So I mean, do we have people bringing in like Klingon weapons and stuff? Like, how far afield do they go, or is it usually just kind of mash up fun stuff?
I'll let Alec go with this one.
The weapons themselves are pretty restricted to Star Wars. So we have the exotics division is the Yari, which the Jedi Temple Guards would use, the staff like Darth Maul, the dual wield that you'll see in a couple of Jedi and Sith, and then the cross guard, obviously that we were introduced initially with Kylo, and then we saw a little bit in Rebels. Those are our exotics. So we don't get too many weapons outside of what we've seen on screen because we do want to keep it within there. But in regards to how people theme their armor, we're pretty lenient. I wore
Yeah.
a kilt for a while because it's so hot in those rooms, and that was comfortable. But yeah, obviously we've had Deadpool, Captain America, and Spider-Man all on stage at some point. One of my friends does a pretty good Ahsoka garb getup though, so we still have a good amount of that. Somebody has a Clone Wars Obi-Wan armor setup that I absolutely love. Ryan, one of our guys up from Minnesota, did an amazing Imperial Guard, the red uniform that we see in the
Nice.
Imperial Throne Room in Episode 6. So we get a really big breadth, and we just kind of want to let people free on that. So as long as the weapon makes sense, you can dress like Beavis and Butthead.
Yeah.
Just hit me with a real
Which
weapon.
and
Yeah,
they're
don't
they're
tempt me with a good time.
yep. But there is a fighter that actually is. I don't know if he's Beavis or Butthead, but he does have that outfit, which is pretty amazing.
Oh, incredible. Electro staffs. Is anyone done an electro staff yet for the exotics?
Not yet, just because at least the polycarbonate of our sabers have give and electrostaff because it'd be mostly metal all the way up. We
Mm,
haven't done yet because that's probably gonna clobber
Always
right through a
gonna be.
mask.
Yeah.
But I love the idea.
Nice.
Adam's a very like hit it first and then go, oh right,
Yeah.
kind of a guy. So the question I want to ask too. So tell me a little bit, Matt, from your perspective. So the trailer starts with opening. You guys go to MegaCon. So tell me specifically about MegaCon. It's one of the largest conventions in North America. It's down by you in Florida. And tell me a little bit about that experience because like conventions for a lot of people in terms of people finding themselves, right? Like the convention circuit has really blown up to a cultural magnitude at this point where I remember, and I think Alec, you had talked a little bit about it in, just like growing up and not having people to talk to about this stuff or being into this stuff because it was nerdy. And I remember going to Comic Cons like in when I was in college or when I was like I'm like 22 years old being like, hey, this is cool to go to, right? Because like I didn't have a massive comic collection. There was a lot of stuff I wasn't into, but I liked it. Now all of a sudden, like MegaCon is taking over an entire side of the Orange County Convention Center. It's massive. And these conventions are some of the most well attended events across the country in all these giant cities. So tell me a little bit about what MegaCon did for you guys when you were filming and what it's done for the league specifically.
Yeah, Alec actually found out about the Saber Legion at MegaCon. He was going around, he was just cosplaying, I think, as Luke, and he just saw it and was like, "This looks really interesting." And so when we started filming the documentary, I reached out to MegaCon and they let us film. And the Saber Legion in Florida, the Florida charter, had a booth there where they were just showing people what it is, what's going on, training different people. And then they actually did demos throughout the day where they would do expedition fights just on the stage where they would just do different fights and do all different types of things just to introduce the sport to all the different people at MegaCon. So it was a really fun experience. And I think we have a clip of it that we can show.
Let's do it.
We are at MegaCon, which is one of the biggest conventions for the pop culture community in Florida. It's right here in Orlando, which is actually where I learned about the Saber Legion several years ago. It's the thing that kind of inspired me to join. This is my first year I get to help them out. We're doing a booth where we can show people what we do, let them kind of play with some of our drill toys, as well as doing instruction demos and stage demos where we actually get to show off the different styles that we compete in.
Good morning, MegaCon! There they are! Welcome, welcome, welcome. We are the Saber Legion. What we do is fully armored, hard-hitting, unchoreographed live lightsaber combat. We have made a sport out of this, so it is the first person to 10 points. First touch wins because they are lightsabers. We don't have to hit hard, we just have to touch. First to the touch gets the point. No shots to the neck, to the groin, to the fingers, or to the toes because we keep each other safe when we fight.
So Matt, from that perspective, I think it's really cool that you can see that there is such a dedication to. I want to say like there's such a respect for it in terms of taking it seriously in regards of establishing rules. This is not one of those things where the intention is to grow this, and I'm sitting here watching this going, there are so many people in the audience watching this. That's awesome. That's super cool. Adam and I have hosted panels. We've done stuff. And it's like, sometimes at some of these massive conventions, it's like hard to get people's interest, but I'm sitting there watching all these people being like, I want to see these. Yeah, I want to see these people duel. Like, were you shocked at how many people were you confused at all, or were you interested, or were you like, yeah, I mean, were you shocked at how many people thought this was cool, or did you kind of go in expecting that at the end of the day, it's like watching two Jedi Masters go at it, a Sith and a Jedi? Because I'm watching this thing going, "Man, I would hate to get hit by that. Hurts watching just someone getting struck by this thing. From your perspective, what is it like from the audience perspective of seeing this? I have to imagine this is like a sport that you're not that interested in, and until you find yourself at a volleyball game, you're like, "This is the most fun I've had
Mhm.
in
Yeah.
over the whole entire year."
Yeah, and it is it's a really fun sport. I think the like when we were first filming, Alec actually had one of the people on set with us put on armor and start fighting just because you're like when you're there, you're like, I want to try this. And all the different TSL charters, they have loaner gear. So they let people just try it out. It's like you sign the waiver and then you can just go out and just start participating in it. And it's such a fun sport to participate in. I think when people see it and go to a meetup and see it, it's just like, I want to do this. Kat tells a story. She went in the documentary, she goes to a meet just because she saw it on a Facebook ad. She saw it and was like, I want to go see what this is. And she's there just watching just because it's entertaining. And Jared, the charter rep, he comes up to her and says, "You're fighting today." And she's like,
Mhm.
"I am." And she goes and she fights and she gets hit. And she's like, "It was the best feeling ever." And
Mhm.
she's been hooked ever since. So once you put on that armor and get hit, because it's a fun sport. And I think people, when you see it, you're like, this looks interesting. And then when you actually put on the armor and have the fencing mask on and go at it, you're like, this is actually fun. So it's a really cool, a cool community. And you have the community aspect too, like a found family. So it's just a really, really amazing organization for sure.
I'm curious about how you see this growing, what kind of media attention you've already had, and um, what you guys hope for the community and for the sport, and what you might see on the horizon. Is there
Yeah.
anything exciting coming up that
Yeah,
you should?
we haven't screened the film publicly yet. We're having our world premiere at the Boston Sci-Fi Film Festival on this Saturday, and that will be the first public screening. Then we'll be hitting the film festival circuit, screening the film for different audiences, and then we'll hopefully get distribution and have this film out there for the world to see. So right now we're in the early stages. We've had some good media coverage uh, covered us so far, so we're excited. People are interested in it for sure, and we're going to be screening from now through summer at a bunch of different film festivals across the United States.
Awesome. Alec, what about with the sport itself and reaching new audiences there beyond the documentary? I mean, I imagine like in the days when there were like 9 ESPNs, you could see every sport.
We did actually, one of the first things that I saw TSL on was ESPN 8 The Ocho, where they actually took our world championships and highlighted us for that. So that was hilarious to see people I now know and am friends with up on ESPN. And I'm like, wow, what if we can keep doing that? We obviously want to keep doing con circuits because like the live audience is, I think, the most fun part of a sport. And then we continue to try to hold events as in as many areas and cities as possible. So we'll be going, our world championship this year will be up in Minneapolis instead. So big thing for us is keeping it accessible and making sure that as new groups join, we can help them create events too, so we can go visit our friends. I have promised I'm going to head down to Mexico and see some of them at some point.
I would love to see you guys at least have a small competition at Space Dive in Detroit. Are you guys familiar with Space Dive?
Yeah,
Alex
so
Googling.
he's looking it up. So Space Dive is this interactive experience that this group of artists put on every May the 4th and then the weekend after. And it's at this like kind of this old shipping warehouse. And they completely transform the entire block of the warehouse into moisture evaporators. They have a full size A-wing they bring in. They do like interactive storytelling. They have a market that's all in universe vendors for people who are like selling Star Wars wares and Greeblies and stuff like that. It's amazingly cool. But I think
Cantina, of course,
uh,
some live music, like
uh,
all
it's
in-universe stuff you would expect.
yeah, yeah. So I'll get you in touch with those guys because that could be pretty cool. Because that would almost be like, as we saw in the Mando Grogu trailer, there's the arena. We were watching Mando fight the pieces from the Dejaric table in the Millennium Falcon, which is super cool for nerds to be like, of course we recognize what a Kintan Strider is. That's great. But you're sitting here going like, there is something that would be really cool about having people almost like a betting ring where you know, here's your prize fighter. They come in, they fight, they duel. That could actually be an amazing addition to that experience. So I think that would be super cool. The last question that I want to ask you guys before we wrap up, because first of all, congratulations. Anytime you set out to do a project like this, I know Matt especially, and Alec, you've been at this on the performance side, but Matt, from your perspective, being able to put together a documentary like this is not easy to do. You're making a lot of hard decisions over going, man, this is a great moment, but does it fit the story? Does it fit the narration? Adam knows this life very well. So congratulations, first of all, for the premiere this weekend in Boston. I think that's amazing. But my question that I want to ask before you go is, what do you hope people get when they see the documentary? What's the one thing that you hope that they take away from it? And then the second part for both of you is, what is your favorite lightsaber in Star Wars, and what is the best duel in all of the Star Wars saga? Okay, so
Hey,
we're loading this question up.
that part, let's save that for the bonus segment for patrons.
That's a good call. Okay,
We'll
I
talk
like
about
it.
most accurate, least accurate, and favorite.
Okay,
do
let's
that for
do that.
bonus.
So let's talk about the documentary. What do you hope, Matt, from your perspective,
Yeah.
what people get from it after they watch it?
The main thing I want people to get when they watch this film is that they can find a community for them that accepts them for who they are, whether it's the 501st, whether it's any type of different community out there. I want them to know that there's something you're interested in. You can find people that have that same interest, and you can connect with them and not have to change anything about yourself. That's the main goal I want people to get from this film, is that you can be yourself and find people that accept you for who you are. And that doesn't have to be with the Saber Legion. It can be with any organization out there. I just want people to take that step and find that community for them to find support for themselves. That's the main goal I have for this film.
Awesome. Well, we hope this gets the attention that it deserves and the community deserves. Where can people find each of you and more information about the documentary and everything else on the internet?
Yeah. I'm at Wyatt, my last name, on all socials. You can find me there. And then for the documentary, it's saberdoc.com. So saberdoc.com. And we'll be posting all upcoming screenings on there once we're allowed to post them. And that's where you can find out about the film.
I think Matt actually on his website has a full link tree for all of us, which I really appreciate. But that includes the TSL website to help find the organization if you're interested, as well as our socials. I think it's probably gonna be the easiest way is go through him.
Nice. All right, dudes. Well, thank you so much for being here. Hang with us after this outro, and we'll do the bonus segment for patrons. Everyone, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. And until next week, may the Force be with you. Thank the Maker is produced by Adam Russell and Jason Chiodo, and edited by Jason Chiodo. If you enjoy the podcast, you can support us by leaving a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. Or you can support us directly at patreon.com/thankthemakerpod, where you can get access to our Discord server, exclusive content, exclusive merch, and more. Our patrons literally make Thank the Maker possible.
I always joke that some of my best friends are the ones I trust to hit me hardest in the face, because I know they're doing it with good intent.
TSL is an organization that fights with lightsabers.
So we put on a fencing mask and armor, and we hit each other with lightsabers.
It is a group of like-minded nerds that get together to hit each other with giant glow sticks.
It's hard to look at yourself and go, yeah, I am a serious swordsman, when it's a piece of plastic that lights up.
I am packing for the greatest trip of my life. Going to Vegas for the national championship. I get on a plane in 3 days.
That is your ring.
She does not go anywhere you don't let her go.
We get hugs before, we get hugs after, we get hugs in the middle. It is just, no matter whether I'm losing, whether I'm winning, it is just, I love being around these people.
Fear is the little death that brings total obliteration. I will face my fear.
So unfortunately, my dad has come down with mesothelioma, which is a terminal cancer in his case.
I just feel like I let you down, that's all.
Family. Fighting in family.
This is my family, this is my home.
It's wonderful. It's happy. It's like, it's chosen family.
I met these people that smiled at me just meeting me. When I continued to show up, they were continuing to be happy to see me.
We used to feel like we didn't have a place in middle school or high school to have that outlet. And it's become a great found family environment for everybody.
If you've got a saber in your hand, you've got a home here, you've got a part of the community.